Hello guys, my name is Moonlit. I'm also known as Valkyria. Um, Today we're going to watch not this floodgate. This floodgate was not so good. Let's watch this halls. Um, so the reason why I'm putting this footage right here and is just so we have something to watch basically. As I'm talking about what we're gonna be talking about today. So um let me introduce myself again. My name is Moonlit. I main tank, uh, and I'm pretty much omni tank. I play every tank in the game, but my my best, my most comfortable tank is Prot Paladin, and second close is Vengeance Demon Hunter. And I've been pugging to get title ever since season 1 of Dragonflight, and I've got title 3 times so far. Um, I want to walk you through a little bit about the mentality of a person that's bugging to get title, and things like um, how your mental affects your performance, um, what sort of tropes to look out for in situations when you're not making, contact lists and friends and people like that to push keys with, because the majority of the time I've pushed keys with complete strangers, and maybe I know one person or two, but the majority of the time I don't use Discord, I just play the game. So, just a little bit again, talking about the titles. The 3 titles that I've got so far, I've talked this in other videos, but if you're new, I'm gonna say it again. Um, I've got the Season 1 Dragonflight title, which is the Thundering Hero title. I got the Season 3 Dragonflight title, which I got with VDH. All of the titles that I got was with Prop Paladin, but on Season 3 I got it with VDH. That's where I really played it. And that was the Dreamy Hero title. And the last title that I got was from Season 1 of War Within, again with Prop Paladin. And these are my 3 titles. So I got title by not a significant margin. Because of the way I was playing, and obviously I'm not the best player ever. There's a lot that goes into bugging high keys, especially as a tank. But I was just sitting comfortably, not comfortably, sorry. I was sitting like maybe 10 to 30 score above title when I got these titles, and out of all the attempts that I've pushed for title, I failed twice and I got title 3 times. So talking a little bit about the parts that I failed on second season of Dragonflight, there was the Exodia meta, which pretty much didn't run dead comp, wouldn't get invited, and you really wouldn't time keys because it was just that busted. And I was rolling VDH back then, and I wasn't getting invited, and I just gave up because I didn't want to gear a Guardian Druid, and I was not motivated enough. Plus, I wanted to play Final Fantasy, which is another game that some friends of mine play. This is a very bad pull, guys. Don't do this in your keys. This slasher has been, removed, but still, don't do this in far too many kicks here. Anyways, so how's life when you're pugging to get title? You want to start, or if you're not motivated enough to keep trying, going through a little bit what I've been through. First of all, I want to preface this by saying that I'm a tank, and getting invited to groups as a tank, I feel like it's a little bit easier, and you're pretty much the leader of the group because you decide the route. You plan around offensive CDs because if your route is not good, you're not going to, get effective CD usage, which is very bad. It's one of the skills that you have to master when you're pugging for title, and you have more power over the fates of the key, if it's gonna be timed or not, because you control the route, you control survivability, Some specs have more control than others, with Prop Paladin being able to sack, lay, bop, spell warding people. You have a lot of say in survivability and utility. And these things, they play a vital role in, managing your key. But going from the very basic stuff, you're a new player, right? So I'm gonna be painting all of the examples here. But if you're a new player and you want to pug for title, there is a very important thing that people usually miss out when pugging, and that is your worst enemy is yourself. And what I mean by this is that if you're pugging for title, you can get frustrated with keys that are not being timed, with keys that you're failing, with your success rate, with your performance, with your DPS, with your utility, defensive usage, anything. There's so many variables that go into doing high keys, and pretty much what defines if you're gonna get title or not is if you're sticking to your plan throughout the patch. Because until the last hour of the last patch of the last day of the patch, you have to work to get your title. So you have to stay focused throughout the patch. Obviously, if you're a very talented player and you make connections, or just you're sticking with the right groups, you can easily get title and sit comfortably and not really care about um, being below the cutoff. But for me, I've got title always by a very slight margin, and that's mainly because, first of all, I'm not a very good player. I focus on some specific categories of like keys that I find more fun, specifically doing damage. I'm a tank, but I really disrespect my survivability over doing damage. I'm usually running talents that are offensive. I'm usually, as you can see from the gameplay here, I usually don't sit on consecration that often. In this key level, obviously, I'm not gonna be doing that too much because I honestly don't, I don't take enough damage to warrant me staying in consecration. But I value a lot having fun when I'm doing high DPS. So that's the part where I'm good at. That's the part where I'm logging good parses and I'm taking notes from people that do more damage than me. But as of like things like survivability, I'm not very good. On Paladin, I'm really good with utility. I use my utility pretty well, but yeah, I'm not a perfect player, and that translates a lot to to my success rate when I'm getting title. And so yeah, so the worst enemy ever, pretty much, is your own mental. Like, you have to stay focused no matter what. If you want to get title, you have to understand that it's not an easy task, especially if it's your first time. And you have to just make sure that you can maintain consistency. And that's something that you're gonna have to learn. At the beginning of the patch, it's normal to fail at some keys because you're not accustomed to the keys, to the dungeons. You're gonna pretty much, what happens with me is that every time that I die in a high E situation, I reevaluate what happened. Like, what brought me into this situation? Why did I die here? What can I do better? Maybe I have to change a little bit the my stats. I have to change my way of playing. I have to change some talents. There's a lot to take into consideration. What absolutely is not acceptable is that I tank my mental. What I'm about to say is the most important thing out of all the video games that you're gonna play, and especially pugging title. You're doing this because it's fun. Not doing this because it's title and you want the prestige or whatever. That's good. It's good to have some sense of duty to achieve high goals. That's really good. But the fun aspect really dictates how fast you're gonna burn out or not. Because if you're playing the patch over and over and over again and you're failing at the same mistakes, you're gonna burn out pretty quick. And that's what happened with me on season 2 of War Within. Because people were you know, they had close teams with like people that were high performers, and what they did is that because of resilient keys, which was something that got added last patch, um, people were selling runs a lot more often. So you would get like just this very big fat of people in like title range that just didn't deserve to be there because they paid for, you know, for top performers to good keys. I'm not gonna go into the discussion whether or not that's something good or not. I think boosting is part of the game pretty much. Like I boost as well. I'm not gonna be a hypocrite, but at the same time, I think that when you're pushing so high as like getting Hall of Fame or title, that becomes like a, you know, an issue with game's integrity, and I feel it's not genuine to achieve that title. So that got me pretty upset, and that's the reason why I pretty much transitioned into Final Fantasy and started playing um, high tier, like high end content there. And yeah, I came back on this season because this season is fire. It's a very good season, season 3 of War Within. I mean, um, but just going back to the, you know, to the situation with how you operate. Um, so cheat code of like getting title is making contacts. I don't really like that's something from me, right? I don't really like to maintain a friend list because there's a lot of issues that come with it. First of all, if you want to run different comps for a specific key, for example, Floodgate, you always want a DK on Floodgate because you can double grip the demolitionists on the pack before Big Mama, and that's really big for count. But sometimes you're gonna have like a Fury Warrior friend that tells you that you should invite him instead because he's in your friends list and like you made a good connection with the guy. But now you're stuck in the situation where you have to alter your comp and you don't really want to do that because it just invalidates the route. And it's not a very cool situation to be in. I mean, I like making contacts and sticking with good people, but at the same time, I don't like the, you know, the conduct that I must have with people when I'm doing comps and stuff like that. Maybe I just don't want to invite you. Maybe there's better options on the listing, right? So, um, but obviously, if you do find people that you like and you enjoy playing with them, then I mean that's the best, right? Because you're playing with people that are consistent and they have the same goal as you. I mean, usually they want to get title as well, and you can, you know, you can vibe with them and do keys with them as well. And actually, that's how I got my first titles. It's because I developed like a network of people to talk with, and I didn't like exclusively do keys with them to get IO, but if they needed a key that I also needed and I had it, I would often just invite them because, you know, it's more, it just makes sense that you would invite somebody that's more consistent than some random that you don't know if it's gonna fuck up or not. Um, so there are pros and cons in having like a, you know, um, a friends list, list of contacts and stuff like that. And so this is a perfect segue to speak about like the actual way that people like viewing high keys. So just as you would, you know, do mythic content in raids with a, you know, with a set group. Viewing keys with a set group is much easier because you're progressing the keys together. So you know what mistakes and what things to look out for that are comp specific, by the way. Sometimes your comp can deal with situations in a way that's better than others, and in some situations it works the opposite way. Sometimes you know, just as I said with Floodgate, you don't have a DK, so you're not able to do that big pack that gets a lot of count, and that's a deterrent, right? That's something that's gonna prevent you from actually running the best strategy possible in your keys. So you have to like do the best, you know, possible route for your comp if you're running a key that's, you know, set up and all of that. But just as I was saying, doing keys with people like you're doing raids on Mythic with a set group is much easier because you're progressing together. That means that you're making the same mistakes together, and what that means is that you're preventing from making those same mistakes in the future. So once you go to the same key on the same key level for the third time, you know what mistakes you will not be doing from the first and second time that you've ran that key and failed. And that's really big. That's one of the main reasons why doing keys with a set group is like just much easier in general. Um, you're accustomed to the damage profile of your group. You're accustomed to the CD rotations. You know what packs you're gonna have CDs, what packs you won't, because there's gonna be a consistency about the comps that you're running, and you're gonna be obviously noticing that your friends are gonna have CDs back up and stuff like that. That goes for the defensive as well. But I'm not doing that, and I'm not gonna talk today about like running, set groups. If you're doing that and you want to do that, honestly, it's the least, it's the path of least conflict of like achieving title, because it's just much easier to progress with a group together instead of just like running off randoms and hoping that they know exactly what to do exactly at what time. You know, there's this thing that is very specific to bugs, and that is throughout the patch, people understand what the best route is. So let's say Echo Dome, for example. Echo Dome is a new dungeon on this season, which means that people still don't know what's the best possible way to do the dungeon. And that means they don't know what poles they're going to be using their CDs, what poles they won't, because tanks usually they don't share their routes, they don't communicate with their team exactly when stuff is going to be happening. Also, if it's the first week of doing that key, nobody's going to know when they're going to have what. So you want to be able to like understand when you're going to have CDs for specific times, and that's very important because in the later stages of the patch, everybody's going to know exactly what the CDs come back to, because they're gonna like realize how much damage they're gonna be doing if they save their CDs for a specific scenario, something that wouldn't have happened on the first month of a patch, for example. Maybe that's a little bit too complicated, but basically what I mean is throughout the patch, people are gonna like min-max the route and their CD usage, so keys are gonna be easier, not only because of loot and gear and stuff like that, but because people know where to commit what, so everything becomes a little bit more streamlined. But that's pretty much it. So the thing about pushing keys, as I said, nothing is going to get done unless you have the mental to do it. Because what dictates if you're gonna fail or like succeed is pretty much your will to do that. Obviously, there are certain situations where that's not the only variable. Maybe you are running a very non-meta class or spec and it's very difficult to get into keys. That's gonna make the learning curve and like the acceptance to get into groups a lot harder. I mean, if you're a Windwalker monk trying to get title, just look at the statistics. There's nearly like not anyone just doing that, because it's impossible to get invited. Obviously, the reasons why is because first of all, the monk's damage profile is not very good in this rotation of dungeons, and also Brewmaster is in a very good spot. So if you're running a physical comp, to get your raid buffs, you would rather run Brewmaster than any other spec on that class. So yeah, if you're trying to bug for title, like all of the times that I got title with Flavor of the Month classes, which, ended up being classes that I was very good at, and that was the main reason why I got it. But at the same time, you have to understand that, like, you have to compromise. If you're not having a team, that runs something specific for your comp, then you have to run something that people are often going to invite, because at the end of the day, what makes you get title is getting invited to keys and practicing. Obviously, that goes without saying. If you're not doing the keys, you're not practicing, you don't know where to spend your CDs, you know, all of that jazz that I've already talked about. So you have to understand that from the get-go. The sooner you realize that, the better you're gonna get. The faster you're gonna get your IO. You're gonna climb. The other thing that I want to talk about is also about when should I start? Should I start at the beginning of the patch? Is it okay to like wait for a turbo boost where people are gonna get zero point 0.7 or 0.5 loot because of a dinar or something like that? Is that better? Should I wait for that or should I start from the beginning? And the answer is pretty obviously actually. You should start from the beginning because the people there are very very good at the game, are gonna be sitting at 0 IO from the beginning of the season. So if you catch them and they see that you're performing well, it's easier to make contact lists and being friends with people that actually want to run keys with you. So you should obviously network if you want to maximize like your probability to actually get title. This is one of the main reasons why I don't really get title by a very big margin, simply because I don't like the social aspect of doing keys, which is very funny because I mean you need a team of 5, right? But I just like doing my own thing and performing the best that I possibly can. Obviously focusing on the damage because that's what I really like doing. I like parsing a lot. So yeah. Um, what other things do I have to talk about? So as long as you're having fun and as long as you're like doing your best to maintain consistency, you should be good throughout. But when you're doing keys, people they don't really like. Some people don't really like to, get their hands dirty and actually investigate what happens behind the scenes in keys and what you could have done better. And that's a very, very, very vital point of improving your gameplay. One of the main reasons why I got title was because I studied a lot. Like I looked at logs. I saw defensive usage. I saw the complexity of pulls. What we had when we were pulling. Like, did everybody have defensives? Did they utilize their CDs properly? Was positioning not an issue? Like, I consider everything because you want to build the most comfortable and perfect scenario for your group to succeed in the key. At the end of the day, it is a group content. You have to do whatever it takes to make sure that your team can survive through. Like, you already have yourself to worry about, but at the same time, you want to make, the life of your friends a little bit easier as well. So if I see that somebody is struggling with defensives, I'm throwing a sack, I'm bopping them, I'm laying them, I'm doing whatever I can. I mean, obviously that goes without saying, but you really should investigate why you're dying. Why is your team not surviving? Why did we lack damage here? Is that pull too aggressive? That pull too bad? Was it a DPS issue? You have to investigate every single millimeter of the key in order to understand what actually happened and how you can. If you are a very good player, a very talented player, you don't really worry about that kind of stuff. It just comes natural to you. And that's something that can absolutely happen. Some people are just gifted. They know what to do and how to do it perfectly. But I want to really focus on this. I'm not playing this game like I'm a genius. I know that I make mistakes. I know that I'm not a R1 player. I'm not worthy of that title. But so because of that, I have to compensate by studying, by putting the effort to actually do that. I mean, if you think about how people, learn piano, some people they're gifted. They know how to do it from the start. It's second nature to them. But for some people, they have to practice for years. That's the same thing. It's the same way that we build skills. So if you want to, just understand just a little bit more about your performance, about the performance of your group, you would start logging, you would start watching clips, you would download this application that I have right now, Warcraft Recorder, and watch your clips, see what you did wrong, see what's so bad about that pull that you did and everybody died. These things, they play a vital part in actually learning how to, time the key. So we're getting to the end of the key right now. I'm not sure if I have anything extra to say. Just make sure that whenever you're pushing for title, you ask yourself, am I having fun? What's the reason that I quit? Right? I'm talking about myself here now. Why did I quit on those other 2 seasons? Because I wasn't having fun. I was getting frustrated. I was dying. I was making mistakes. And I just wasn't improving. So I stopped. And that's fine. As long as you're having fun with the game, that's just what matters. You shouldn't care about if you're getting title or not. Obviously, if you want to work for it and try your best, you should. Obviously, you should, absolutely. But you gotta be having fun. If you're not having fun, then in a sense. So, we've talked about logs. We've talked about resources. What things to look out for if you're pugging. There are many more other aspects of pugging that makes the whole concoction of getting title a possibility. But what you really have to focus is that there are many things that you're not gonna be sure how they work out, how they play out, and that's fine. You're allowed to make mistakes, and as long as you're consistent and you learn from your mistakes and you learn why you died, why you failed, that's fine. You're eventually going to get it. You're eventually going to learn. And if you're not going to learn, then you have to look at logs, you have to dive stuff. I've made videos on my channel if you want to watch. I have made some videos on difficult keys. There is a 16 ring battle that I did on season 1, which was a very hard dungeon back then. I wasn't as good as the player that I am now, but still, I think I've played that dungeon to my limit because I was using my kit just whenever possible. And I also made some videos about how to invite people in LFG, how to look at logs and stuff like that. All of those resources you can find on my channel. I'm not a very, as you can see from the production value of this guide, you really shouldn't be expecting much from me. I'm not gonna be making a crazy montage or something like that. But there's resources that you can find on my channel and you can look if you're trying to invest into things like that. Fun first, always. Never forget that. Always think about having fun. Maybe the season is not very good, maybe you're having some issues, you don't have the time commitment, which is also a very big issue. If you can't commit the time, then honestly you're not gonna get title because it is a very harsh time commitment. You have to pour a lot of hours into it. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope I helped. That's all the experience that I have. I'm not a perfect player. I don't get title by a lot, and I'm just pugging my way through it. I'm not making teams and stuff like that because I don't want to bother with that. If you have any questions, obviously you can post it in the comments. I'm gonna link my resources in the description. And yeah, that's it. See you guys later.